Okay, we are supposedly recording. No, the actual plan is so you know how on all the podcasts on the blog I put enjoy at the last word on it.
Yeah.
So my plan here is we're gonna call this episode the short one, and the description is just gonna say, "My dad's dead. Enjoy." And so this episode is going to be however long it takes for you to convince me not to do that. That's the length of the episode here.
Oh,
I'm coping with humor. If you don't laugh at my jokes, I go into a spiral.
I get it.
So you have to laugh at all of my
No,
jokes.
I totally get it. Wait,
All right.
how's that different from usual, actually?
You're not very good at laughing at all of my jokes usually.
That's only when I'm talking about something. I'm trying to make a point, and you're making
I
jokes.
know, and I'm just saying that all the ones you wouldn't normally laugh at, you have to laugh at now because my dad's dead.
All right, I'll try very hard.
It's what he would have wanted.
Yeah, you're probably right about that,
Uh,
actually.
he wouldn't give a shit if you laugh at my jokes. Hello, everyone. We're doing a podcast.
Yeah.
My dad died 2 days ago, so it's not going to be much of a podcast. But I feel weird about not having something up there, and I mean, William and I haven't had much of a chance to talk, so that's good. And as we all know, our relationship is pretty much on the internet now, and the rest of you, I mean, you all, I am convinced some of you would like to know what's going on, and so I don't want to keep you in the dark. So it is Thursday morning. I've only been up for like an hour over in my
Mm,
time zone.
mm.
Um, and soon I'll go back over to my mom's house and hang out with her and my sister. But wanted to knock this out beforehand. So yes, my father died on Tuesday. Today's Thursday. Yeah, Tuesday, middle of the day. Um, things were pretty okay when we talked last week, I think. He was quiet and whatever, but we were all taking care of him and stuff like that.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, things changed very quickly.
Oh,
Um, well, we were putting him in the hospital bed downstairs. I don't know how he did this. The man could barely stand, but somehow he could get out of that bed while my mom is next to it sleeping. And so they had a night where she wakes up to see him just standing next to her staring at her.
hmm.
So
Wow.
after that, they're like, we gotta cover this. So the next night, I just stayed up all night
Oh,
and watched him.
yeah.
And then the night after that, uh my brother did that. And this was all very good because my mother had been getting no sleep. So
Sure.
now she actually could go up and sleep. But it got crazy around the time my brother was watching that night. And by Monday, he couldn't stand anymore, and he really kind of couldn't get out of bed, but was determined to get out of bed.
Hmm.
So we were doing a lot of having to hold him down and things, which didn't work. And mother was starting to lose it. So the hospice people jumped in, and very quickly, like by Monday night, I was supposed to do the thing Monday night again, but they had gotten a nurse to come in overnight, and she handled everything. Mom didn't have to wake up or anything. My sister had come down, so everything was good. By the time I arrive Tuesday morning, he's unconscious. We also upped the drugs very quickly, so by by the end of Monday, he's unconscious and he's staying unconscious.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, which was for the best. It's not fun trying to hold. And at the end, I think he just couldn't keep it together because I'd be saying like you have to stay down, and he'd say okay, but then he'd keep fighting.
Right.
Um, and so then he was just unconscious, and we were all there, and there were tons. It was great. At that point, they made it so none of us had to do anything anymore.
Yeah.
We had two different aides there at the same time, and they were turning him and handling stuff, and they were all super great. And mom decided she needed to get the funeral thing set up because we didn't really know how long at this point.
Hmm.
So they get that all worked out. And finally, and all day mom's doing the whole talking to him and, giving him permission to go and things like that. And she does it again, and she's sort of sitting in the thing next to him, and she's got her hand on him. And we're just telling stories. I don't even remember what it was, but we finally just all relaxed and we're kind of telling a story. And then one of the aides gets up and goes over and touches dad on the chest. And mom and I both like weren't figuring it out for a minute for some reason. And then I suddenly noticed I hadn't heard him breathing in a while. He was breathing really loud. He had some stuff in his lungs and things like that. And suddenly we're aware, oh yeah, he hasn't been breathing. And so I quickly was like, Sarah, my sister, I was like, you should come in here, because she was in the nearby room. She comes in, and yeah, he was just done.
Hmm.
And the whole thing was great. I mean, they all stepped in. Things were really good, and we had a few good days. My brother left that morning,
Oh.
which was good. He was willing to, and he offered, but he really didn't want to be there for it.
Oh, I see. Sure. Okay.
And I didn't think I did. I have a thing about being in the room when something goes from living to dead.
Yeah.
I didn't think I wanted to, but I had quickly decided that that thing was it was going to be too hard to work out unless it was like, you know what, I'm going to stay away for 3 days. Like, there was not a way, and I was like, you're just going to live with it. And it wasn't bad. I was kind of surprised.
Oh, okay. So you feel good about that decision?
I do. I do feel fine. I don't know that I gained a lot
Right.
from the experience or anything, but I don't have problems with it.
Okay. Good.
Um and yeah, we had good days, and we all talked to him, and he was so still himself. My brother and I just found that amazing. I don't know if I talked about that last week. Like, he was tired and he would struggle for words sometimes, but he was absolutely still there, and we'd be talking and he'd jump in with a bit, or he started having, because he would have weird memory things. I think I mentioned this. Supposedly one eye was just showing him old memories.
Oh no, you didn't say
Yeah,
that.
he would say he could see out of one eye, and the other one, other stuff was happening. Frequently it was my mom, but just old stuff. He'd been having that for a while. And
Interesting.
he just randomly, one night, they were there by themselves, and he started talking about how I proposed to Trish, and like he remembered details that mom couldn't remember.
Wow.
So he would just pull things out, and he did some crappy stuff. Like, he was kind of crappy to mom a couple times, which like sucked, but it was also like, yeah, that's dad. Like, that's
Yeah.
that's exactly the kind of jackass thing he would say. So that was good, and then he changed very fast, and it was very scary for like 24 hours, maybe 12. And then hospice came in, and this organization called Aging Wisely, that's a local like support group that works with hospice and things.
Yeah.
They all swept in, and everybody was incredible, and it made it so much easier on all of us. And then after that, he went very quick. The one downside, one of my uncles had finally decided he had decided he was going to come see him again.
Hmm.
And he, unbeknownst to us, he had decided to drive that day and was driving. And so I called him right afterwards, and he was like, he said, I'm around the corner.
Oh.
And he's like, do you mind if I come? And we're like, of course, show up. And I was really glad he was there. He was a very calming presence. He uh called all the other siblings while we were sitting there. He handled that part.
Oh. Okay.
Um, so that was good. And then there was a certain point. It took a while to get the funeral home to come and take and there was a certain point at which mom was like, I don't want to be in the room with the body, and especially not when they're moving it. So she and I and my uncle went into the other room nearby, and we just chatted about things, and that was good.
Hmm.
Um, all right, I'm saying this in case any of my family is listening. You might not want to hear this part. Um, but I don't know. I've reached the point for it. The removal of the body was kind of ridiculous. They tried their best and they were very respectful, but he was a huge man and there were a lot of stairs and it was very narrow.
Oh.
It took a bunch of us. He kind of had to slide downstairs and
Oh.
there was a lot of stuff. As my sister said at that moment, because she was primarily helping as they're getting him into the van, she's like, I'm gonna need so much fucking therapy. And so now my sister is here. She's gonna leave sometime today and go back home. But then on Saturday, her whole family's gonna come and visit us. And I'm here. I leave next Wednesday morning.
Mm.
And Mom had said, if you want to go home, I'll pay it now. But I'm like, no, I'll definitely be here. And I'm kind of glad that I can be here for sort of settling things down. And we're good now. They had to go to the mortuary to sign the paper so he can be cremated yesterday. But otherwise, things are pretty much done. My sister and I did a bunch of shopping and we all hung out and had dinner last night. And I did over the years, I've gotten very good about figuring out how I deal with trauma.
Yeah.
And so after they took the body out and everything, and it was only about 3:00 on Tuesday, I was like, do you guys need me? And they said, no. I said, okay, then I'm going to go home and I'll talk to you in the morning. And so I came home and kind of cut loose in private and coped and then slept for 12 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And sleep's a huge one for me too. And I woke up and I've been better. I have moments. But overall, for me it's the lead up. Once the tragedy happens, I adjust pretty quick. Same thing with Twiglet,
Yeah.
I was losing my mind and then he was dead and then I needed a few hours to distract myself and to sleep a little bit and then I got to where I just sort of miss him and that'll stay forever and that's kind of how it is with Dad. I get caught in moments, but in general, it went great. It went as good as you can possibly hope for somebody dying from a brain tumor and pretty up there just on deaths overall.
Yeah.
So that's good. We're happy
It,
about that.
I mean, it really drives home the wisdom of his choice to let things take the course they
Absolutely.
did. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was so glad. I did not want to influence their decision, but I was so hoping like it would have been so much worse the other way. And this was fine. I mean, like I said, we had maybe a day where it was a little bit awkward and stuff. And I mean,
Sure.
and it's sad to see him drugged up, but he was peaceful and we still talk to him and everything. And
So you're going to be there till Wednesday.
yes, well, I mean, I'll sort of be there till Tuesday night, and Wednesday I will drive off. But I will
Right.
say my goodbyes Tuesday night, I think.
And I agree. I think it's been great for your mom for you to be there and for you to continue to be there. How is she holding up? Is she
She's good. She's processing slower than Sarah and I, which is completely understandable. I mean,
right?
especially for me and to a lesser degree Sarah. Like I love my dad and I am sad he is gone. I would have loved more time. I will mourn him. I will always love him. I talk to him on the phone every 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Like I will miss him. This will not change my day-to-day life a lot. With my mom, it'll change every goddamn day of her life.
that's right. That's right.
And I mean, and I get that. And now, having Trish for as long as I have, I get that better. Like this to me is a serious thing, but I'm like, I can't imagine if this was Trish. And so
Right.
it's gonna take her time. Her process is a lot of talking and telling stories and stuff. So a lot of yesterday was just sort of hanging around talking about things, and I think that's what most of today will be. I'm thinking Friday because it'll sort of be just her and I Friday, and she's trying stuff like she and Sarah watched a little TV on Tuesday night and things. And I'm thinking I may just bring my Kindle over, and if nothing else, we can just be in the same room and read our books
Sure.
if we need to. But and I mean, mom's eager to get out of that house. It's going to take a little bit, but she can still take care of herself in there just fine. And most of the issue again was dealing with that. I have sorted through tons of stuff. My dad was keeping prescription invoices from 1999, so
Mm-hmm.
a lot we can just throw out. But yeah, and then ultimately she's gonna move to a smaller place, like a senior living place or something, closer to my sister.
Oh, well,
So
that'll be nice, really.
yeah, no, that'll be good. And yeah, I think she's going to be okay. She's very happy with how it went. Um, yeah, I think it's gonna be okay. I mean, she's gonna need to find new focus, but
Right.
there's time for that. Um, yeah.
Well, you've never talked to me very much about your dad. I don't know if you're interested in saying anything about him because I mean, I don't know where he was from. I don't really know what he did for a living. I don't know any of that stuff. But I mean, you don't have to. I'm just saying if you wanted
Um,
to, I'm curious a little
Dad,
bit.
dad is from no fixed abode. Uh, he was born in Astoria in a hospital that was declared a historic landmark like 20 years ago.
Oh.
We have always ribbed him about that. um, yeah, you so old. The hospital you were born in is a historic landmark. Um, he had not a great upbringing. His mom kind of sucked, and his dad kind of sucked. Um, I only recently got more of the picture of it, but his father worked up in Alaska.
And
Maybe
he was born when? I forget his
he
age.
was born in 1934,
Oh, okay.
and his dad worked up in Alaska. And there was a bunch of times where like his dad was gone,
Hmm.
and his mom was trying to make things work. And then there was a time period where his mom went up there as well, and they like to hang out and party and stuff like that. And they kind of weren't into having kids, and they had kids very spaced. They had 4 kids.
Hmm.
Um, uh, my oldest uncle, my dad, my youngest uncle, and then my aunt. And yeah, so his history is a lot of staying with different relatives and things like that, and kind of being on his own pretty early on as a teenager. Um, and not really seeing his dad much. His dad I met once when I was 3, and I don't remember it.
Hmm.
His dad was not part of our lives, and his mom went on to marry another man, and he was my grandpa on that side of the family.
Oh, right. I think I remember
Um,
you saying that. Now, did he have to be sort of like, did he have to take care of his younger siblings quite a bit or?
that didn't come up surprisingly. I think they kind of scattered a little bit
Hmm.
fairly early on, and different people were taking care of different kids.
Oh, got it. Sure.
And grandmothers and stuff like that. Uh, and then yeah, I got bits and pieces. He was a army medic in Germany after World War II. He was sort of in the occupying force there.
Oh,
Um, and he married a woman named Donna, who is who he had my brother with, and another child who died at age 11 of leukemia.
oh.
So stepsister I never knew,
Hmm.
or half sister I never knew, I guess. Um, and then yeah, eventually they divorced, and he married my mom, and they were together for however many years I am. This September, I guess it would have been 44 years.
Wow.
Um, and he worked for the Department of Transportation, Oregon Department of Transportation, for 35 years. And most of that time, he was teaching state employees how to use email.
Really?
Yes,
Huh.
it was a new and weird thing, and he was showing them how to do it.
Huh.
Which is funny because beyond that, his computer skills were terrible, but he knew that system really well.
Yeah.
And then he retired a long ass time ago. He retired when I was still in high school,
Wow.
and my mom was still working. And so it was just him and I at the end of my high school career, which was awkward.
So when you grew up, it was just you and that because all your siblings were that much older than you,
Sort of.
right?
My siblings were there. No, they're not that. They're 9 and 11 years older.
Oh,
So in the beginning they were there, but it was one of those deals. My sister was there, and every other weekend she went away to her dad's.
oh,
And my brother wasn't there, but every other weekend he came and stayed with us.
okay,
And then yeah, by the time I was, you know, in third or fourth grade or whatever, they had both moved on
right,
to college and things like that. So yeah, so yeah, that's why my psychological profile is always half the baby and half only child.
right, right.
Um, Dad was kind of a jerk. He doesn't remember. I mean, obviously now, especially, but in the last few years, I'd talk and he'd be sitting there and we'd be talking about something. He's like, "Yeah, I never really had much of a temper," and I'm just like, "Who the fuck are you talking about?" Like that was your whole identity for most of my upbringing. Um,
Really, he was angry a lot.
he had a very short temper, and he was the full-time worker, so he was the guy that got home and was tired and would be angry at you screwing around. Yeah, no, he had a terrible temper. That's where my temper comes from, that you don't particularly know about because I'm medicated. But back in the day, I had quite the temper as well,
Hmm.
and I didn't get along with. I remember at a very young age telling my mother that I liked him just fine, but I didn't think I loved him, but I
Mm.
loved her, and she said that's okay. Don't ever tell him that, but that's fine. Um, and then by my teenage years, I was just sick of him, and he was not my dad anymore. He was a dude that lived in the house with me.
Yeah.
But he was the dude that lived in the house with me, and my mom was working all the time, so we would hang out, and I basically became friends with that dude, and
Hmm.
then realized I liked that dude, and then he sort of became my dad again. And it's funny because yeah, growing up, I was such a mama's boy, and I barely related to him. And then in these later years, I felt very close to him, and mom and I have our issues now. But yeah, I became closer to him than most anybody in the family in the last 10 years or so, probably. And he
Why is
changed a lot. Mom and I had a tremendous effect on him, and when he finally would like relax and be willing to express his emotions and things like this, like he was a very different man at the end than he was in my upbringing.
and is that does that account for you getting closer to him? Do you think, or
I mean, I think that's part of it. I think mom and I just wore him down. Like mom and I like to talk about our feelings and need to resolve things and get our feelings hurt more easily and more readily and are much more open about that kind of stuff. And I think over time it just sort of seeped into him, and he was much more open and understanding in his later years and really willing to express his emotions. I think he grew up very much having to be a man's man and that kind of thing.
sure, sure.
I always like to say that in a different world, my father grew up to be one of the most successful drag queens you ever met. There's a feminine flair to him that came out in his later years that I was just like, oh, that has been dying to escape for your whole life.
What did he have any hobbies or anything? I mean, what did he do in his free time? And
Collecting a bunch of shit in boxes and not letting my mom throw it away. That was his main hobby.
so, I mean, like in retirement, he didn't like golf a lot or something like that,
No.
or
The one thing that I can say was a hobby was he had a few years where he got really into genealogy.
Oh yeah.
Um, but that was about it. No, he and my mom just did stuff together, and they read, and they watched their stories, and they traveled, and
Were are your folks into theater? Is that something? I
yes, yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah. They were regular patrons of the local theater down here too,
yeah,
and yeah, they always loved that kind of stuff.
and that kind of got you into it, right? Or
Or I got them into it. I don't know.
oh, okay.
I mean, I've always also been. So did my sister. Lot of theater in this family.
Did they ever in a production or participate in anything like that, or just or were they just in the audience?
They were never, except when my mother was a young nurse somewhere. I don't even remember now. She and my dad went one night for the Christmas party, and they came back, and apparently they had a little skit of night before Christmas,
Yeah.
and they got my dad to be a volunteer, and they gave him a T-shirt he couldn't look at, and then just told him to come out on the stage when they said the stockings were hung by the chimney with care. And he walked out on the stage and had a shirt that said, "I am a Christmas stocking. I'm hung."
Ugh, that's terrible.
And I didn't get it. They had to
Oh,
explain it to me.
right.
They came home and they told me this, and I'm like, "What's the bit?" And they explained to me what hung meant because I had no idea. Uh, but
But
no,
did he think that was funny or?
he did a lot of eye rolling and stuff. I don't know. I mean, he told the story. That to me
I
says
mean,
something right
I mean,
there.
if he thought it was funny, that's fine. But
I think he did sort of. I think it was one of those you guys. It's not their kind of humor, that's for sure. But
well, the reason I ask is because you talked about him having a certain flair near the end of his life, and I just wondered.
oh no,
I,
this was before the flare had kicked in. This was way before the
oh,
flare
okay.
had kicked in. Um, but
I would
yeah, no.
just
Other than that, no performances.
no. Would he have been good at that? Do you think?
I don't know.
I mean, you're good at it, so I'm just wondering if that was another
See, I
thing that.
don't know that that's true.
Oh, you don't think you are?
I don't think I'm a good actor.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we did a film and you were the star, and it was pretty good. And you made some very specific choices. You really crafted that character.
Yeah, I'm still in recent years I've been. I mean, I'm a decent performer. I'm a decent entertainer, but I don't know. Strictly speaking, an actor, I'm very good. I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't. No, I don't think he would be, and I don't think he'd be interested.
Hmm.
The need for the limelight definitely comes from my mother, not from my
Oh
father.
yeah, that's interesting.
He's fine to be the quiet one in back. Even at the end, uh, he this talent he had discovered years ago because everyone in my family talks over each other except him, and he hates it. He would raise his hand,
Oh,
and frequently there was like a passive aggressive vibe to that, like it's gotten too far if he feels the need to do that. But at the end, he's just this little shrunken man that can barely focus or whatever. But just every once in a while, we're talking, he's like, and I was like, "Yes, Dad," and then he would say something.
so okay. So, but was he good at telling a story? Because you were just talking about him telling stories
Yeah,
about things.
I think he was decent at telling the story. But you had to get it. There were so many things he didn't know that we didn't know. A few years ago, well, all the stuff about his parents and things was when I was like, I know you lived in Alaska, but when and why and for how long? And so that brought that up. And then the time, and I think I've talked about this before, where Trish and I are like, what rank did you leave the army at?
Oh
And
yeah.
he's like, well, I was a private because I had been busted back down after my court martial. But anyway, and we're all just like, wait, what? 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 What?
Wait, that is classic. That
Yeah,
is classic, man.
no, that was amazing. And he tried to go on to something else, and we're like, nuh-uh.
Okay, come on. Now, do you
The
know the story?
hell?
Do you
I
know
do,
the
and it,
story?
and it's and it's not that interesting.
Oh, well,
The
I mean, you
joke
don't
is
have to.
better than the story. He was a medic, and he was giving out flu shots, and one of the guys didn't like needles or whatever, and asked not to get the flu shot, and he didn't give that guy the flu shot, and that is
Oh,
not okay. And
What rank had he been?
I
At
think
that?
he'd just been a corporal.
Oh, I see.
He hadn't been around long, but yeah. So yeah, so he tosses that one out there. My favorite is he and I
That's
are
awesome.
alone. This is not long ago. This is like a year or two ago, and we're sitting around, and he busts out of nowhere this story. So when he was in Germany on his leave, he liked to travel around Europe, so he did that. And there was something where he was coming back from leave, and he's on a train, and he says, and there this German girl sort of commandeered me to put her suitcase up on top of the thing and then to keep her company.
Yeah.
So we were talking another thing, and then he's like, and then we stopped in some town or whatever, and went to this hotel room, and we got a room, and one thing led to another, and then the next morning, I went, and I'm just like, what? What are you telling me? Are you sitting here telling me you had a one night stand with a random German woman in like the late 40s?
Man, if
And
people
I'm
really
just hearing this now.
people need to be watching this on YouTube. If you're listening and you haven't watched any of our things on YouTube, you've got to see his face while he's telling the
And like
story.
he
It's
legit,
fantastic.
like, you know what didn't come up in that story? That girl's name,
Oh,
like, at all. I
oh
don't think he
no.
remembers. I'm like, holy shit. Like, there was so many stories he forgot. And meanwhile, the stories he did tell, I heard 1,000 times. When I first came out as bi, they desperately tried to relate and couldn't. They're both
Yeah.
super straight. And the only thing my dad had was this story about in college when he hitchhiked a ride, and this guy pulled up, and while they're driving, this guy starts saying all these things about how they're going to go back to his place and have a bath and all. And my dad was uncomfortable, so he was like, just let me off at this corner, and he did. And that story, he told that story so many times, and I'm just like, that is not a good story. That is not a good story. That is not a good story to relate to your queer child,
No,
but
not
it's also
really.
not a great story, full stop. And he like wrote it down and shit. Like that story came up a lot. But meanwhile, yeah, didn't know about the court martial, didn't know about the random German girl. Yeah, that was he had a lot of those, and there wasn't a good time at the end here. Like I got that voice recorder, didn't get a chance to use it.
Did
Two
he
things
leave
like that.
did he leave a lot of genealogical research behind for you to like look at or to I mean
We found some boxes of stuff. We're trying to figure out what relative wants it. I think there's a couple who are interested. Most of us don't care. Uh,
hmm.
my family's trash. What can I say? Uh, the experience has been very different because I was prepping for this idea that I was going to say goodbye to my dad and
Oh,
leave
sure.
here, knowing he was going to keep going, but that I wouldn't see him again. And instead, I literally watched my father die. And there's goods and there's bads to that, but
Yeah.
I think I'm glad I didn't have to go there. I had been slowly performing a speech in my, like, forming the speech I was going to tell him
Yeah.
at the end, and I didn't, of course, manage that. I talked to him some when he was sleeping, but
Do you feel I mean so are you do you feel like you got a sense of closure out of it in spite of
absolutely,
okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Those few days, and so glad my brother and I came when I did. I remember I was shooting for May maybe so that the coronavirus would be done. So glad we came. We had a few good days with me and my brother, and my sister was down here, and it was good. And then very quickly switched to this other thing where he was just sleeping there. And at that point, we just all wanted him gone. That sounds horrible, but you know what I mean.
No, I know exactly what you
Um,
mean.
and he went. I mean, no, this has been good. I feel like I am processing well. I get caught every once in a while, but I feel like I'm doing pretty good with it.
I mean,
Um,
I'm it's pretty much like you say. I think that's just going to be it. You're always going to get
yeah,
I mean, 6 years from now you'll be watching a movie and something
of
in the
course.
film you might not even know what it is, but it'll trigger it and you'll know that it has something to do with your dad.
I get that now with, my dead aunt and my
Right.
dead cats and things like
Yeah.
that. And I mean,
Yeah.
and I understand this will probably be a bigger one. Like I get that,
Yeah.
and especially so for my mom. And
Right.
uh, but yeah, things are getting. It went well, and I think things are gonna be good from here. So
So do you think overall it, like you were saying, that you thought you were prepared to leave and your dad would still be alive and that would be like the last time you saw him or whatever? I mean, do you think that this worked out better for you and your family than
I do. I think it worked good for my brother because he didn't want to be there and he like had just left essentially. Um, yeah, and I mean, and the rest of us were there. I feel a little bad for my uncle, but he seemed fine with it. I think even seeing that he was there after the fact, like, and I mean, it was great help to us.
yeah, yeah.
But
Well, it's kind of like you said to me before was had he gotten there earlier, his brother would not have been
yeah, 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 yeah,
conscious or
yeah, yeah,
anything.
yeah.
So it
Yeah,
wasn't,
so
like that much of a
it wouldn't have
difference.
really changed
Right.
in that sense. It was just a really weird phone call to have. And it
Yeah.
was very weird at that moment. So I called my sister and she's standing next to me. And it was so weird because apparently she didn't think of it. So I'm like, Sarah, could you come in here? She's like, okay, what's up?
Uh,
And then she looks over and we're just all staring. And then we sort of confirm, and she and I just at the exact same time look at each other. And like I grabbed her hand and she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, are you okay? So, um, yeah, so it was a very weird moment. But I mean, the people out here were amazing. Um,
yeah.
the head hospice nurse, like our contact, first day or two, we were not impressed with her,
Oh.
and we were like, it's like her head's not really in this. She's been forget, like I don't know what. Man, she stepped up. What we now think is that she thought this was the beginning of a long hospice case, like many of them are. And as soon as she found out things were changing, like she was there multiple times a day, giving it. She gave us the meds and fixed all that, and then later she brought us the liquid meds because it was easier for the things she had, and she made calls and it was great. So she ended up being awesome, and everybody involved ended up being awesome.
I mean, that's been my experience with hospice workers. I've
It's really
unfortunately,
hard right now though because of the pandemic.
yeah,
That was the thing from the beginning. My mom's like, if the pandemic wasn't going on, so and so would be here for hours and just sit with him and let me like go take a nap or something. But they can't do that right
yeah.
now.
Now, his plan the whole time was to be cremated and things, right? So,
Yes, yes, he actually already they were into a memorial association. I don't think that worked, so we went with the funeral home. But yeah, that's that. And mom's keeping him. She picked out a that was part of the thing that day he died. She went upstairs for a while and was picking out a box made with mango wood or something. I don't know.
oh,
She's way into it.
so the ashes aren't going to be scattered somewhere.
No, 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 no. We've talked a lot about the, but no, she's keeping them along with Grandpa's ashes, and I think Grandma's. We'll just have a lot of ashes to deal with after she's gone.
So, but you guys are going to have some kind of celebration of life thing later,
I
or
don't know. I
not
don't
sure?
know. If we do, it'll probably be a while.
Yeah.
There's sort of. I mean, there's a lot of letters Mom wants to write and stuff, but the the number of people who would be able to and want to come to that is limited, and also right now impossible.
Right.
Uh, so we may not. Our family doesn't hold by that a lot. With both of my grandparents, they ended up basically with Grandpa. They did more of a thing because Grandpa was sort of famous in a way, and there's a lot of stuff. With Grandma, they waited like 6 months and then just basically had a family reunion.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, we were all the immediate family was all here for it. And we'll see, but nothing soon. My work's also been really good about it. I'm not working right now this week.
Right.
I had decided that before he went.
Right.
But I'm checking email because I don't want to come back to hundreds of them. I check like once a day, and my boss had been like, I talked to HR, and we're gonna switch up the time you recorded as PTO, and we're gonna put it as family caregiver, and then now use the bereavement and all that. So
Very
this
good.
won't
Very
cost
good.
me a lot of time. And I already talked about how they took up a collection for us, and
Yep.
people have been really good about this. This experience has taught me how I've really got good friends,
And you work for a good place.
and I work for a good place.
Yeah. That's good and very important
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
And how's Trish doing?
She's okay. She took yesterday off. I don't know how much was related. She did not sleep well the night after he died.
Mm.
I don't know how much was related or not. Um, but she seems to be doing okay. I mean, she knew a while back now that she wasn't going to be able to see him again. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So I mean, I think that this is all good. I mean, this is all how you want it to go. Like my
Yep.
grandpa still wins for the best death, but this is pretty close.
What do you mean?
My grandpa had lost his mind. He's in the dementia ward of the nursing home. And then he had like 2 days where he suddenly recognized my grandma again.
Oh,
And
wow.
they spent the day together and had a great time. And he made some comment that day about how the two of them were going to run off into the woods. And he had 2 dinners that night. He ate his dinner and he's like, "Could I have another one?" And he did. And he went to bed and he took a shower, which I mean, they bathed him, but like he actively wanted to take a shower himself.
Hmm.
And then he went to bed, and they do with that. I mean, he was like 99. They do 15-minute bed checks, and he just died in those one of those 15 minutes. He went to sleep and just didn't wake up.
Huh,
It was
wow.
awesome. So yeah, so he wins, but this is a close one, and with fucking brain tumors, like this is definitely as good as you can hope for these. I was worried going in because I know a lot of stories about this, and I know some fairly close stories about this exact kind of brain tumor. Um, so this was good. I mean, and he was 85. Like we can't be pulling the too soon card. Like he
Right.
he had a life, and he ended up raising 3 kids by the end that all have been pretty successful and happy, and
Right.
and and love him and his wife enough that we came back to take care of him.
Right. Right.
I mean, that's
Well, it's like you say, you can't really get better than that.
yeah, that's a win. Um, we should probably wrap it up at some point here. I gotta go see all of them again.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, this isn't much of a regular episode, but I thought all of you, including William, should know what's going on. And next week I'll be back in Iowa, and I mean we'll still be recording it this way. My
Right.
work has officially declared that we are working from home until further notice. We've stopped playing the date game.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's probably wise.
I think so. Um, and I'll have to be super isolated for 14. And me and Trish like can't go out at
Yeah.
all or whatever for
Right.
14 days once I get back because of the airport.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to. I mean, I'm sure I can speak for all of us. I appreciate you taking the time since this is such a
Yeah,
recent thing that happened. I mean, I know it's not always easy to, do something like
I'm
this.
glad. I'm glad I've got a day. Well, and I've got a day. Yesterday was a good day. Yesterday, my sister and my mom hung out, and it was a good day, and that helped. Last night when I was going to bed, I'm like, I'm really tired, just like the night before. Like I feel better than the night before. And then so I was like, oh yeah, my dad didn't die today. That probably helps with going to
Yeah.
bed.
Right. Right.
And so like especially in the beginning, each day is a big change.
Right.
And that's good.
Yep. That is good.
Um,
That's good.
but yeah, I mean of course I was gonna tell you and I figured, like it feels ridiculous. I'm so glad we can do this now. I was gonna be real weird this afternoon to be like, I have to leave you guys early. I know we're all, commiserating about dead dad, but I got a podcast to do.
Well, I also want to say that you let me know fairly quickly that he passed, and I appreciate
Yeah,
that too. You didn't have to do that. Not,
I
that was
texted a lot of people. Also, people have been giving out my phone number. Not you, but people that don't have my number at work are texting me their condolences. I'm like, oh, the fuck you give my phone number?
still, it's nice that people care enough and want to let you know
Yeah,
that they're thinking about you.
it is very sweet, but some of y'all being fast and loose with my number.
Yeah,
No,
well,
I immediately I didn't know what to do with myself, so I'm like texting everyone, and I think you were like, after I called my brother and called my uncle, I think I texted you. Well, no, I texted Trish, then I texted you, and then I just was
that's
texting
that's
random.
right. That's my thing. I'm the second person you text.
Exactly,
Trish, that's my
exactly.
thing.
It was Trish, then you, and then in the gaming group, and then
Right.
random coworkers who I knew, and like one coworker who was gonna be doing Reiki stuff, and I'm like, I don't want you doing that when after he's dead. That feels weird. So you should know you can stop. Um, we shouldn't laugh too hard. It's coffee. I love her to death, and it was very sweet of her. But I also felt really guilty about the idea of like she's doing remote Reiki work, and regardless of my feelings about it, it's not on a corpse. Like that doesn't seem,
No, that doesn't seem to be a
no.
right.
So
You
yeah, I
really
jumped on that one.
needed to tell her, yeah, you can
Yes.
stop now.
Uh, and I would anyway. Coffee and I are fairly close. She's high on the list regardless, but she bumped a little higher because she was doing that. So
I was a fan of the show and everything. She writes in all the time, asks some great questions.
yes, yes.
I don't know her, but from the stuff she sends in, I definitely I like her on because of
She
that.
she's a good egg.
Yeah.
I'm usually talking to her all the time, but it's through work, so it hasn't come up as much. And I'm not talking in general to people. I feel really bad for Vispol, who's also probably listening. She again, she's being really great, and she's sending all these texts, and I'm just like, I don't feel like responding.
Sure.
I'm not ready to go sort of back into the world quite yet, but we'll
That's
see.
perfectly understandable, of course.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap this up, and then
Okay.
listen next week, guys. It'll be normal again,
Yep.
ish. I mean, as close as we ever get.
All right.